the amount of investors that are willing to actually be the first check-in. Not say, oh yeah, come back when you have a lead, or can't lead around, I can't carry around, I can't be your only investor. Those investors are extremely few and far between. And so I think that's like Persephoni tries to solve that, and we're often the only check-in, and we're happy with that. And thinking about, okay, how do we take this curative potential, completely industry-changing potential therapeutic construct and solve the biggest challenge, which is manufacturing, in a way that's robust and automated.
As we get older, like I look back as well of like a few people in key times in my life, what a difference they had or how they affected the trajectory of my life. Guidance counselor, high school teacher, etc. And then you end up just a completely different trajectory after that.
And I have had this happen to me. I have a call at 10, investor says, oh, I really like it. You should do this, this, and this. And a call at 10:30, investor says,
Completely
exact opposite.
Yeah.
You'll never raise for a platform. You shouldn't even say that. Just tell me what the lead is.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the BioFounder GPS podcast, where we demystify and democratize the business side of going from 0 to 1 in life sciences. Today, I'm here with Christopher Potts, Chief Business Officer of Persephoni Bio and co-founder and CEO of Monarch Therapeutics. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
So excited to have you.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm pumped to finally have you on. This is a first in-person episode of BioFounder GPS, so this is very cool.
I'm proud to be the first.
Yeah, thank you for being here. So we were just chatting before this, and this was actually my number one question. We're going to talk about Persephoni, we're going to talk about Monarch, Biotech, but what I really want to know today is, I believe you grew up on a hog farm in Northeast Ohio. Is that right?
That's right.
So I want to hear more about that and the journey from that into Biotech, because I think you had a really interesting and impressive career. You've done lots of different things. So kind of walk me through how that went and how that.
Oh, great. Thank you. And and it's amazing to be here. And totally, if you ask 10-year-old me, well, one, podcast didn't exist when I was 10, but that I'd be in Manhattan on a podcast when you're 41. I don't think that I would have said that's true. So I'm excited to be here. But yeah, as a 9-year-old me in Lodi, Ohio, which is a tiny little hamlet in Medina County, about an hour south of Cleveland. A great place to grow up and learn how to be an entrepreneur. And that's what farming is. When our farm, as you mentioned, hogs, we started actually as chickens and then some sheep, hobby farm that grew and grew and ultimately was run as a business. But my parents, my mom always had a job off farm, like a proper, she was a nurse. And my dad had, usually had a job off farm, but sometimes was full-time on the farm. But always as a small business. And thinking about how do you, with extremely limited resources, scale something that's capital intensive, that's infrastructure intensive. And I didn't know these words at the time, right?
Right.
You're just
trying
it was
to.
just a Saturday morning, right? But looking back, that's exactly what it was. And literally, the duct tape, it's got to be done. Figure it out, problem solving. And so it was a fantastic way. From the time I was 9, was when we first really got into sheep, and then bridged into hogs when I was more in high school, and the hogs were kind of my endeavor. But I think the key completely translatable skill set that you learn in that is what I call the farmer's ethos. And actually, when I wound up going to law school, I wrote my law school admissions essay about this. So it's something that's I've thought about for a long time. But it is that when you're a small farm, small business generally, but certainly a small farm, there is no option to say I don't feel like it today. Like I don't feel like feeding the pigs right now, because if the pigs don't get fed, they pass away, right? Like there's like real consequences, right? Or I don't feel like fixing the fence. Well, you don't feel like fixing the fence, that means you're gonna get a call from the farmer down the road saying your hogs are eating my garden, which happened a couple times, right? And one anecdote that I always think about from time to time, totally different way of growing up, was took the school bus home. I lived in a consolidated school district, so the school was pretty far away. That took the bus home, and the driver was driving down our gravel road, and she stopped because there were 5 or 6 pigs. And when we say pigs or hogs, I mean like 300-pound hogs in the middle of the street, and they were mine. So she let me out in the middle of the street, like
Wow.
quarter mile away from our house, and I had to like get these hogs home. And so that was like a normal, it's just another day.
That's great. But it's a responsibility as a 10-year-old, right?
Exactly right. And responsibility, but then also and credit to my parents. Like I said, my mom was a nurse, educated, science, like mind as a nurse, and my dad as well, who also was a microbiologist, but farmer. And so we did almost as much as you were legally allowed to do veterinary medicine, DIY. We did it all. And our hog farm was the original AI, which is artificial insemination. We did not own any males. So all of our hogs we artificially bred. And when I was 14, I remember summer vacation that year was my dad and I drove to Illinois State University, which was a 12-hour drive from Ohio, and took a week-long course on artificial insemination. Wow. So anything from semen counting to ovulation checking, all of the sort of science, veterinarian science behind animal husbandry, that was me at 14. And so it's not that surprising that I, went into engineering and then ultimately
was that kind of like the bug into, like, no pun intended, right? Was that kind of what inspired, like, planted the seeds for biotech? Yeah,
yes. And I also had the luxury of being in a rural community, but actually going to a really
Ohio State?
I went to Ohio State, but I'm thinking high school. So my high school was a public high school, but it was consolidated, so lots of different towns. So it was actually pretty big. It wasn't like a small rural thing. It was, a couple thousand students. And I had a great science teacher. And I was never a great student, even in college and law school. I mean, I did well enough. School was hard for me. I'm not the smartest guy in the room, but I always applied myself. And Mr. Ryan was his name, he's a football coach too, encouraged me to think about chemical engineering at Ohio State. He went to Ohio State as well. So that was part of that path. And of course, my parents. But yeah, that was all sort of building to studying engineering.
That's amazing. I'm sure, I think we all, as we get older, like I look back as well of like what a few people in key times in my life, what a difference they had or how they kind of affected the trajectory of my life, a guidance counselor, high school teacher, et cetera. And then you end up just a completely like different trajectory after that. So, and then you studied law after that.
Yeah. So I went to Ohio State, like I said, for chemical engineering, and actually at Ohio State did undergraduate research in a lab that was doing, let's call it biotech, but it was a broad range of biotech materials research from one end. In one guy in the lab was trying to create an artificial uterus, so materials engineering, like tissue scaffolding, like hardcore, what I would call real biotech. And then to slight my agribusiness friends, not real biotech, but is what I was working on, which was bioreactors that were aimed at solid state fermentation to make syngas and bio-based ethanols. So doing optimization of bioreactors. And so like that was my science background. Ultimately discovered I did not want to be a researcher. So I did it long enough to do that just as an undergrad and thinking about what was next. It was 2008 when I graduated. So the economy was tough. And so really thinking about what I wanted to be when I grew up, and had been exposed to some IP attorneys through internships. And so bit the bullet and, studied for the LSAT, applied to a bunch of schools, wound up ultimately going to the University of Connecticut School of Law, which was super grateful for. And again, of the decision trees and weaves that life takes you, UConn was a fantastic place for me because General Electric is down the road from them and hired people like me who had engineering degrees to be interns in their legal department specifically for IP. So I, had all throughout law school, a part-time job at GE, which then ultimately I got hired by one of the law firms that GE uses in Boston. And they had clients like GE, J&J, Procter & Gamble, a couple others. So, got exposed and into the world of sort of biotech and advanced manufacturing, advanced bioreactors, which is the angle that initially brought me into, where we'll get to, which was Monarch Therapeutics. from the engineering or reactor side of things, so manufacturing.
Yeah.
That was the angle that drew me in. So first law firm, and then kind of took it from there.
Did you have a early kind of interest in startups? Like if you had to talk to the 20-year-old you, right, or the 25-year-old you, did you always kind of have in the back of your mind, like, okay, I want to go to a startup or a biotech?
Yeah. I don't know if I always wanted to go there. Again, this is I didn't grow up in San Francisco, right? So it's
Same.
you know, there's levels to everything. I was always very entrepreneurial and always wanted to do that, and was always building and scheming, whether that was even in my like personal finances side or anywhere else. But so I don't think when I was 20, I didn't sit down and say, I'm going to start a company and that's going to be the path. It honestly, it wasn't that. It was more like, I want to do really cool stuff and build things from, you know, from the bottom up, you know, from scratch, and work on really interesting projects. So that actually took me to, you know, to the big company path first. And I don't know that I would change it, to be honest. I actually was just talking to someone, because my first job, again, as a lawyer, but in the pharma drug development space, was at a company called Lonza, which is a Swiss contract development manufacturing organization. It's actually the largest manufacturer of drugs in the world. Most people, unless you're in the space, you don't know it, but they are massive. And the thing that was fantastic about them, being a lawyer, one was the people, amazing mentors that are still mentors and friends to this day, in all parts of the organization there, that have all gone on to do great things. But it's the exposure. So because they're a contract manufacturer and they're the biggest, everybody is their client, like pretty much everybody in some way. And so I got to work on so many different things, and so many and different. And I always had the mindset of never say no, which, you know, has its own troubles.
Pros and cons.
So I was always volunteering to do something. And at the time that I left, within the legal department, I think I was the only person that had worked on every business that Lonza has. In some capacity, whether it's directly supporting or indirectly volunteering to help projects. But that at the time, Lonza had a specialty chemicals business, like wood treatment, like arsenic and like dirty, you know, chemical business. Pool chemicals, they at the time they owned a company called HTH, which is a pool chemical company, all the way to CAR T cell therapies, right?
Wow.
So I had the ability, capsules. At the time, they just spun it off. They were the largest manufacturer of capsules, like empty capsules in the world. So I had an opportunity to work on all of those and get exposed to everything. And I think when you're 28, I think is how old I was when I started at Lonza, maybe 29, that's what you need. Like that's perfect, because I got to see everything and ultimately gravitated and wound down the cell therapy path for my core. Like what really gets me excited personally is cell therapies, which, you know, Monarch is a CAR T cell therapy company. So that's you know, that's where the path of my scientific interest is. But it got there through a point of discovery of just doing everything.
100%. I can relate a lot. I wanted to go to startups when I was younger. I saw things kind of happening in the tech space, but I went down into global health space and then pharma. And at first I was kind of reluctant. I'm like, I don't want to go to a big company. But looking back, and as I kind of started there, I'm like, wait a second, I'm getting like a bird's eye view. I'm getting to work on very different things. So I think there's definitely benefits to working in a larger enterprise that maybe don't get the credit that sometimes they deserve. So I could relate. I want to talk a little bit about Persephoni, and I know that
I haven't mentioned them at all. Yeah,
I know. So let's get to that because I have tons of questions. I think it's very interesting. I know we were chatting about this as I was doing research. I saw that it's a venture studio. Is that's how it's referred to?
Yes. So, I mean, and I think as we mentioned in the you know, we're workshopping the messaging of how that. But at the end of the day, or at the core, what we are is we're company builders.
Yeah.
And that is my tagline on LinkedIn, and I believe it. I mean, at the end of the day, we're trying to solve really complex scientific issues that ultimately drive patient value. That's the product. That's the end of the game. But from my perspective, like, how do we get the infrastructure, the company behind it in order to enable all of those? You know, with kind of the thesis that many businesses in our space and drug development fail not because of the science, but because of, you know, a business failing behind it, whether it was a strategic decision, a financial decision, or any number of other things that can go wrong. Often the science, maybe it should have pivoted. Maybe that first clinical trial should have been designed slightly different.
Right.
So it looks like a scientific failure, but it's disguised actually. It's really a disguised business failure. So we are aiming to eliminate that or mitigate that. And I don't know if you can
minimize,
actually eliminate, but make those less common is really the core of what Persephoni is doing. And so as a venture studio or a company builder, we have two modalities of companies that come to us. One is we build a company from scratch, and we're looking into that, and that's going to become more and more of what we do. But whether we have a research lab in RTP, North Carolina, right in Durham, we have a wet lab that we operate and run ourselves. We have the ability to do translational science there ourselves. And so like starting companies from scratch. That's one flywheel. The second flywheel is early stage biotechs that maybe just spun out. Maybe they're led by the former postdoc that really was excited about the technology and spun it out and has grinded in the grant process and in the friends and family round, and they're looking for professional in that first institutionalization of those companies, and those are the situations where we excel. And so often the first check or only check in, again, beyond friends and family, although not exclusively, we love co-investors and syndicate members, but really thinking about how do we support founders from a infrastructure perspective. So we staff, one of the things that I'm pretty passionate about and I think is real is that, and as a founder experienced this, I would have loved to have a project manager that is there beside me to
helping
make
you execute.
It's not an executive assistant. It's like that would be demeaning. But it does some executive assistant functions, but a lot of scientific functions and CDMO said it's going to be this, and actually their proposal said this thing in the proposal. In the conversation, it said something slightly different. We got to make these match. There's too much to do for one person. And so the program manager is key for that. So we staff all of our companies with a program manager, and then we fractionally support the gray-haired SMEs to help them with all the decision-making that you have to do.
That's great. I think this is the kind of fundamentally why I'm doing what I'm doing as well, because I think from my experience as well, most often it's not the science that is the challenge. It's everything around that, especially for first-time founders. And I love that you guys put a project manager or someone like that in place, because as a founder, I'm sure you could relate. You're the visionary, right? You're going on podcasts, right? You're like setting the vision, beating the drum, but then it's very hard to context switch to now I need to get super granular, execute, et cetera. And sometimes, a lot of times, I think it helps to have someone who keeps you accountable, who keeps the train, kind of saves you from yourself sometimes, right?
Exactly. Yeah, totally. And is just there to pick up the things that normally would slip through the cracks. And you don't realize they slip through the cracks until there's a problem, right? So that's a huge part of it. And the other thing is a playbook, right? So in what we were chatting pre-show about what I was doing on the train here, which is learning about how to turn a SharePoint on, because
definitely the number one topic in biotech, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's completely unsexy, but it's really important. Have the good data governance, good systems in place. And it's a distraction to a founder who's trying to run a biotech. And so how can we at the Persephoni level or at any level, take that kind of decision-making, the real incremental stuff off their plate.
100%.
With them in the room, not shoving anything down anyone's throat, but just saying, okay, this is what we suggest we do. Not only do we suggest you do this, if you say yes, we'll just go do it for you.
Yeah, I think that's a blessing.
Yeah,
it's a blessing for the folks that are listening, because I know there's venture studio, there's accelerator, incubator. Help kind of for folks that maybe are not familiar, how should they differentiate what you do versus an incubator, or are these terms all synonymous? Is it really down to what you actually do?
Yeah. So I don't think they're synonymous.
Okay.
I don't think there's well-defined use terms in all of those, and especially considering biotech or even say drug development as a niche certainly compared to software or tech, what our friends over there do, which dominate the definition space, right?
Yes.
So like the
100%.
definition of accelerator or an incubator is defined by Y Combinator for the most part, which is not, I mean, they do a little bit, they occasionally will do a drug company, but not very often.
Sure.
So I think the key thing is that we try to incorporate aspects of all of them. And I would say accelerator, incubator, honestly, I kind of struggle to tell you the granularities of the differences between the two, but I think the key difference between what we're doing and what they're doing is temporal time. So we're with the companies, we're shareholders, meaningful shareholders. We put ourselves as co-founders. We don't literally call ourselves co-founders, except for the ones where we start them. But if you come to us as a founder, like we're not demanding that you call us co-founder, but that's how we view ourselves. And so we take an equity position that's akin to that, meaning we're there for as long as the company needs us. Well, on an operational perspective, we hope to fire ourselves as a good thing, meaning the company's got critical mass and they're ready to, they really need to have their own full-time dedicated staff to all of the functions. That's not most companies that are in the early preclinical translational space, but ready for them to get there. But the key is that it's not a 6-week program. It's not a 13-week class where there's a demo day at the end.
Right.
Like we may do demo days. We haven't yet. We may do them in the future just to give a platform to our companies. But we're there however long it takes. And if that's 6 months that because it's a rocket ship and all the science goes perfectly right, and the development plans were flawless and the science did what it was supposed to do, and we're only literally operating the company for a couple months, that's great. Everybody in our space knows the science usually doesn't do exactly what you want it to do. I mean, these are they're hypotheses for a reason, and sometimes your hypothesis is wrong, right? So if it's 6 years, like we're prepared to do that.
That's great.
Hopefully it's not, but that's not the goal. But in theory, we're there forever.
I think it's a great model because I've definitely seen companies struggle when they go through like a multi-week or 3-month, accelerator or programs, which could be great. I'm definitely not saying anything against that.
There's totally a place for it.
There's definitely a place for it. But I think, we all know it takes a village and things take time, whether it's the science or whether if you're selling into enterprise, those sales cycles are long, right? And a lot of times just startups go through their own growing pains. So it's definitely good to have someone there.
And I like I think the key and what excites me, and as a founder myself, is the caring for founders and trying to take things off their plate. And there are a couple of, whether you call them accelerator or incubators, I don't know, but I know you're familiar with the American Cancer Society Bright Edge program and the Bright Edge Entrepreneurs, which I think you might be one of the mentors there.
Yes.
I love that program, and we're very close with them. We know that team extremely well. I think they do it really a good job of sort of having a curriculum, but the companies have to fly on their own. Like they are there, and they are supporting them with a network and a great brand name like American Cancer Society. But that's a fundamentally different thing than what we do.
Sure.
Like so to say we're this
you're very hands-on.
bucket, like it's totally different. Like they're not operating companies. They're putting resources around people and mentors, but they by no means are negotiating CDMO contracts on behalf of their companies, which we may do, right?
That's as someone who had to negotiate contracts, I could tell that's a huge help.
Yeah.
Where are you seeing the companies struggle the most, or like if you have worked with companies so far, what are the main stressors or like failure points for early stage companies that you have seen?
Yeah.
Where you guys can step in and help?
Well, and I'm going to throw you some credit here because I think my answer is what you wrote about in your last update, your last newsletter. It's funding and fundraising and the sheer amount of time that it takes to get your first check. There's always outliers, and there's insert celebrity PI at MIT or Penn. who don't have this problem, but I'm not talking about those guys. I'm talking about the postdoc that's spinning out of a lab where the professor is unknown, with great science and huge high potential, but not a name brand behind them. The amount of time that is spent trying to figure out how to get the first check is enormous. And it's often in a funding climate like the last 2 to 3 years, really, going back to 2021-ish, is, it's a years-long process. And building relationships. There's no substitute for going to dinner with an investor and having him say, what the heck are you doing? Why would you do this?
Right.
Looking for an answer that gets back to patients because he himself was a cancer survivor and it was a test. And did you pass the test or not?
It's personal. Yes.
So that part of it, like the fundraising, getting, and then once you're able to sort of create that curated list of real shortlist opportunities, which always gets back to, like, in this environment, the amount of investors that are willing to actually be the first check-in, not say, oh yeah, come back when you have a lead, or I can't lead around, I can't carry around, I can't be your only investor. Those investors are extremely few and far between. And so I think that's like Persephoni tries to solve that, and we're often the only check-in, and we're happy with that. As long as we're convicted on the team and the science. And I think that is the key, is the hardest thing for companies right now, for first-time founders in particular, is figuring all that out.
Yeah.
And it is not all, like we said earlier, while trying to,
set up
cure cancer or whatever your disease space is, Alzheimer's, whatever.
And understand the science and execute on the science.
Yeah. Create a development plan that's credible.
Yeah.
Get quotes from vendors that people will believe.
Yeah.
And all of those things are built into that, baked into this. Okay, what's my go-to-market strategy where the market is investors? Which is different than my go-to-market strategy for my drug. Yeah, which you also have to work on, right?
Yes. Yeah. And I'm happy you bring that up, because that's a whole other process, right? Where you have to build a network. When you and by the way, thank you for the shout out for anyone that's listening. Biofounder.io, subscribe. For as you look at those early checks, right? The folks that may be outside of your organization, so maybe the individual investors, I'm not sure. What is the profile? Because I'm sure everyone listening would love to know if there's like a pattern.
If we're speaking, again, it depends on who we're talking to.
Yeah.
If we're talking to a professor at MIT or Princeton or some other, it might be slightly different than the postdoc coming out of one of their labs. But I think the key, and that a lot of that maybe isn't newsworthy to most people or to many, but it's ultra net worth, high net worth individuals, family offices. That is, like, we personally have experienced on a number of occasions, the ability to move fast, to move with purpose, because many of them are driven by personal things. I mean, they're people. At the end of the day, we're talking about one or two people's money that we're investing. And so maybe they have a family member that's impacted by the disease that you're working on. Yeah. Those are the easiest, best, and definitely where you should start. And I think everyone, if you're trying to raise capital in our space, to develop a drug asset, understand who the wealthy individuals are
in your space,
in that space, that have impact. Maybe they have already set up a foundation. Maybe their father or mother, who was the famous person, passed away from this disease 5 years ago. Michael J. Fox is like a good example.
Sure.
So they do a tremendous amount of work. You should definitely know that if you're working in neurodegenerative. You should know them and reach out and figure out how to get warm introed. And so I think that's a key thing, rather than start with, Kleiner Perkins or, whatever.
The same 30 or 40 funds that everyone else is chasing.
Yes, exactly.
No, I think that's great. I know we were speaking before of, as a family office, you're not just looking at biotech. You could be investing in real estate. You could invest in cash flowing born businesses. So why would someone who's ultra high net worth write a $250K check or higher, or whatever that amount may be, into a super high risk enterprise that may or may not have a financial windfall in the future.
Well, and then you bring in, okay, how do you fundraise for a fund separately?
That's a separate,
because when you are fundraising for a biotech fund, you are directly competing with anywhere from a money market account to crypto funds.
Yeah, to the next AI startup.
We had, I raised money actually, and not at the fund level, but for Monarch Therapeutics.
Yeah.
One of our initial investors, a guy I love, and I have a personal connection with. His kids go to school with mine. Fantastic guy. He's selling crypto in order to invest in. At the time, like, it'd be easier to sell today, but like 18 months ago, crypto was over. His Bitcoin were like, he's the question he asked me, like, how are you gonna outperform? Why would I do this?
Right.
Like, well, first and foremost, like, you're gonna make a real impact in the world. That's key. That's key. So I mean, I never lose sight of that. It does carry weight. Yeah. But it's not everybody. Yeah. There's those investors self-select, right?
Yeah.
And you need to be able to have that conversation to ferret that out with any person very early. And I think one thing that founders, and when we were talking about like what you're working on in terms of how do you actually like make the short list, but those first calls when you are pitching your new startup are extremely stressful for the startup, for the founder, right?
Yeah.
You get better at it over time, of course, but it should be, and I think the people who fundraise well are the ones that understand that I'm interviewing them every bit that they're interviewing me. And so, like, I need to start this conversation with, okay, what's the last check you wrote? What's your normal check? What's your averages? What's the last 3 you wrote? Like, are you actually, when did you write that last check? Are you active right now? Is this a waste of my time?
Yes.
Because a lot of and I will say, and I have a derogatory word for a neighborhood, a large city in the area, and the group of angel and sort of semi-professional investors. We call them the Philly cartel, and I love Philadelphia, so no hate, Philly folks. The cartel there. Honestly, most of them are like
pharma executives.
A lot of them are pharma executives, and it's just like wealthy people, but like in the club. It's an investing club. It's something to chat about with the friends at the bar. They're not, many of them are taking this call knowing they're not investing. It is a waste of the founder's time. Yeah. And that's not to throw Philly under the bus. That's true for every city, including San Francisco, like in Boston. Like
absolutely,
these people exist.
It could be it's an investing for sport or taking the meetings for sport.
Exactly, or just not even sport, like to learn something.
To learn, it's interesting.
It's practice for them too. Like all that's legitimate and real. But as the person who's got a metaphorical gun to your head of need to raise money or else. Like, you need to be able to understand that in the first call in the first 5 minutes or 10 minutes. So you're not wasting your emotional energy as much as your time. Yeah. But the emotional part.
Have you gotten a kind of a sixth sense for, because I think you could also read the energy of the person as like, are these people for real or not? Yeah. Do you, if you had advice for other founders, or like, how do you qualify a investor as quickly as possible? Do you just ask them directly? Are there signals or vibes that you could look out for? Like, how do you kind of read the room just so you don't waste your time?
Yeah. I think it's partly you have to do it a bunch and develop that, but there are certainly, obviously there are specific questions and what I mentioned is like understanding how recently have they invested? What are they actively writing checks? Like, or was their last investment 5 years ago? Yeah. And their website is great and they have these metrics, but they actually haven't done anything in a really long time. Yeah. Or as you said in your newsletter, they've invested in drugs, but their last 5 checks have been in AI discovery systems. That's not the same thing, right? Yeah. They're in ostensibly the same worlds, but their thesis is completely shifted, even though they haven't told the world this. Like, you need to be able to get to that understanding of what they're looking for and what they're doing quickly. And it's just asking innocent questions. It's not gotcha, but it's like, starting the call, like introducing. I always, as the founder, I love to set the tone and get on a first call. Thank you so much. However you got got the call in the first place, but thank you for your time. Really excited to talk to you. It will be really helpful if you could introduce your fund and what you're working on and what you're looking for first, and then I will introduce myself and we can get into the weeds. I love to start calls like that, just like that. Yeah. And then let them tell us. And even at Persephoni. So Persephoni, one of my roles as a chief business officer is to make sure that when our companies are ready, they have an exit path. And so one of my goals for the year is to make sure we're on a first name basis with every large pharma in the world. Yeah. And so I'm doing that, and we're having meetings, quarterly meetings, update meetings with all of the large pharma. And that's what I start the call every time. Like, yeah, I'd love to tell you about me. That's far the less interesting thing. Tell us what you're looking for.
I love that.
And I've never had anybody be offended by that.
100%. It makes the best use of the time. Yeah. It's the opposite of what I've seen in so many instances where a founder could get on a call and with the best intentions, but the first 25 minutes of a 30-minute call is just going through a pitch deck. Yeah. Before I even have a chance to introduce myself or say like, why am I on the call to begin with? Yep. So I think you have to flip that around.
And
that's great advice.
Absolutely. And I do love, and this is a personal thing, and maybe there's a tremendous amount of room to disagree with me. If I go on a first call and I do not open a slide deck, those are the ones that went the best.
Absolutely.
I don't need a slide deck for a first call. Yeah. If I can't describe my own business without a slide deck, great. Now, if they ask a question and they want to see some piece of data, okay, it's there. I'm ready to go. Show them the graph. Yeah. But like the first 30-minute call where it's feeling out, understanding, I don't need a pitch deck for that. Absolutely. That's the follow-up.
Absolutely. Right. Has it been different? Because, I'd love to understand better how you split your time, because you're
changing a little bit, to be honest.
Because you have a therapeutic startup, and we could chat more about that. And then you're running helping to run Persephoni. Yeah. So what does a week in the life of Chris look like?
Yeah, and like I said, it's changed a little bit in this summer, for very good reasons on all fronts. But let me just kind of wind back to give the story, paint the picture of why I have two hats. So I was started at Lonza as a lawyer. I was the associate general counsel, head of intellectual property for Lonza Cell and Gene Therapy business unit, which is a huge business unit at Lonza. And then at Lonza, during that role and that time, had the opportunity to build a brand new business unit within the friendly confines of Lonza, which was focused on personalized medicine, the thesis of one batch to one patient. So thinking about, if you wind the clock back to about 2019, CAR Ts, there had been a couple of approvals. We had ex vivo CAR Ts were they weren't mainstream yet, but there were a couple of approvals. But beset with manufacturing issues. If you look at Yescarta, Kymriah, both of them had huge off-spec issues, huge manufacturing challenges those first couple of years. So we were in that backdrop and thinking about, okay, how do we take this curative potential, completely industry-changing potential therapeutic construct and solve the biggest challenge, which is manufacturing, in a way that's robust and automated. So we Lonza and the small core team that are some of my best friends still to this day, took the company in the direction at the leadership of Eitan Abraham into investing in an automated bioreactor system with the idea that raw materials on the left, push a button, drug comes out the right. Like that's the thesis back in 2019, 20 timeframe, and 18. And so we acquired a company, small business out of Canada that had a bioreactor, and we were building and scaling and growing that. The problem and challenge with that, with any type of automated system in any industry, but certainly in the highly conservative therapeutics market, is that nobody wants to be the first. So the question always was, okay, well, come back to me when the FDA's reviewed it. So that was a challenge. So what we wound up doing was we're going to have to just make our own drugs first, to be the guinea pig. Not because Lonza wanted to be a drug company. They're not, and they weren't. But they needed to get drugs in front of the FDA for the purpose of validating this machine. So we wound up going out, and I was the IP attorney helping this team go out and license some therapies. So we did that. Mission accomplished. Generated the data, first in human in Israel and elsewhere. And so, but struck a deep-seated interest in going down the therapeutics route in both me and my now co-founders of Monarch. And we had the opportunity to meet this team at the University of Pittsburgh there that was developing a new CAR construct that would even more enhance and make personalized therapies real.
Yep.
Okay, how do we match, not just from a manufacturing perspective, ex vivo CAR T, but now actually develop a CAR T that's bespoke to you, the patient, and your biomarkers. So that was the genesis of Monarch. Met this team. I wound up going from Lonza over to Legend Biotech, which was a tremendous experience, right at the perfect time for them, where coming off of commercial approval of Carvykti, coming out of IPO, really learning and learning from some really, really talented people on how to build a biotech that is IPO, and it's like that's already over the curve.
Yeah.
So it was at the large company, and then biotech that was right in the precipice, and got the little hubris, to be honest, of like, oh, if they can do it, they're all super smart. Love those guys, and this is not derogatory and girls, not derogatory to them, to those men and women, but if they can do it, I can do it.
Right?
Yeah,
yeah.
Totally.
We've all been.
There was a lot of that. There was a lot of that. So we did that. I called my former colleagues from Lonza and said, hey, that technology that we really liked, what if we just did it ourselves? And hence Monarch, the butterfly coming out of the cocoon, was born.
Oh, I see. Love that.
And so wound up, while still at Legend, like working the groundwork to figure that out, worked through conflicts with Legend, and they were great. They were great support, and ultimately took the license from Pitt, quit Legend the next day, and Monarch was born. Enter everything we just talked about trying to raise money when you've never done it, and you do not know a single investor in your life. You've never met one. You were at a large company who went public 100 years ago, literally. Lonza's a 125-year-old company. But VCs are not in that remit. And even Legend, public company, like VCs aren't really there. So no Rolodex. So I spent a year, working the Rolodex, trying to raise capital, raising capital. It was slow at first, initial kind of the standard routine of friends and family, some angel checks, hundreds of thousands here and there, before my strategy was never say no again, go to every happy hour.
Yeah.
We had our first follower at Biolabs in Philadelphia, and won the Golden Ticket Award for Biolabs. Thank you to that team as a huge part of my journey, and which gave us access to a little bit of credibility, but also access to all of their events. And so we'd go to their happy hours, and I met Hillary Schultz, who's the founder of Persephoni.
Nice.
And ultimately convinced her that Monarch was a great bet, and that we should think about, how does a venture studio help me achieve my goals at Monarch, and not just me, but my scientific co-founders at the university, and as well as my co-founders at Lonza who went separate ways, in terms of having day jobs still. So it was about a 4-month dance with Persephoni between me as the Monarch founder and Persephoni, including, and this is getting back to like, how do you know if it's real?
Right.
I think you can tell pretty right away. And like Hillary and William Heath were fantastic, and it was collaborative from the very first meeting. It's like very clear, like they were really interested in what we were doing and helping people, and how do we get that scientific. So there was a lot of, I'll call it free advice, like before the deal closed kind of advice. And including, we went to JPM separately but together, like that January. So we met in, let's say, October. We went to JPM and had a bunch of joint meetings together, even though there was no deal yet. And so ultimately we signed the deal. They invested in Monarch, folded Monarch into the Persephoni ecosystem, and very quickly developed or understood that running Monarch, that's mission one for me with my time. Getting back to your question, like what do I do with my time? Mission one for my time is Monarch, and everybody understands that, and it's literally written into the contract. But mission two, because even as a founder of a biotech, like once you get sort of things rolling and science going, there is downtime. Like there's time.
Sure.
So I spend that other time supporting Persephoni and all of the Persephoni companies, but Persephoni itself as they were a young company, and building the infrastructure of what does good look like for them. So it's about 50-50. Some week, the last, say, 6 weeks has been a whole lot more Monarch than anything else, because we're sitting on we're right at the precipice, just closed, some, let's call it pre-seed financing.
Great.
And science is running and data's coming in, and building the seed round, which is now almost close. Like it's right there. So we're really excited, and I like having to travel. Recently went to China, working on different components of those deals, and so my time in the last 6 weeks looks like
more
Monarch founder.
Yeah.
When it's not that was peppered in with, Persephoni just publicly announced the addition of their latest company. It's called CellSim.
I saw
in North Carolina. Fantastic team. Seema Nandi is that postdoc that is just, the world is her oyster. She's going to be a big time founder in our space for a long time to come, and really proud to be working with her. But she, helping with the IP strategy for that company is one of the things that recently was working on, is, a couple hours, in a day or a week. Currently, I'm figuring out, how do we transition from their lab space that they used to have into our space. So like practical things, like again, keeping Seema's brain power focused on drug development, so that I and my role, and of course we at Persephoni have other folks that are there thinking about the drug development part, like Bill Heath, our CSO. But my specific role, the way that I view it is largely like, how do we help keep the rest of the stuff moving.
Yeah, exactly. And I know we talked, there's so much in what you just said I'd love to dig more into, but not to lose sight of the operational side. I know we talked about the operating system earlier, and you guys have a term for it. It's what's
we call the Persephoni Breakthrough Operating System,
PBOS,
and it's the brainchild of our team, but really the effort and child of our COO, Bruce Rickard, who's an amazing drug developer, just tremendous guy to be working with. But it's really taking a Lean Six Sigma approach, a playbook of how to do drug development that currently, or prior was a paper-based process, a Miro board-based process. And how do we turn that into an agentic approach?
Okay.
And so thinking about a company brain, or other sort of AI native but not AI exclusive, like there are paper parts of it, right? In order to streamline the non-sexy company building parts, some of the sexy stuff too, though. But things like competitive intelligence, things like IP docketing and making sure you don't miss deadlines, things like PO systems, so that invoices get paid on time, so that you can log in and see exactly anybody on your team who needs to know, of course, permission gating, knows exactly what the budget is, what's planned for next week, what's planned for next month, what's planned for 5 years from now, like all of that in sort of a dashboard approach. So there's like different components that all tie in. I think a lot of folks are working in this space, but it's really, we think it's a really meaningful step forward. Even you think about all the diverse software systems that biotechs use, whether it's Benchling for your lab data, your LIMS, or your bank account, or QuickBooks, or anything in between. How do you tie it all together?
So this helps to do that. Do you see the tech stack changing for biotechs?
Oh, tremendously.
Is this the main area that is changing, or are there other areas where maybe the biotech of today, the startup, like the pre-seed seed biotech, looks different than the biotech of like 5 years ago? Is it mainly in this space, or are there other opportunities?
Oh, of course, there's tremendous opportunities everywhere. Like on the discovery, the biggest space is probably the discovery side, and I'm not even talking about that at all, right?
So it's just the ops.
So like the discovery space is huge right now, and you mentioned earlier, I think we were off camera or on camera. I remember about AI scientists. I really want to learn about it. I need to become familiar with this. I would love to hear about it. But no, there's tremendous amount of upheaval. Even while we were at Bio in San Diego, what was that, end of June? We went to the NVIDIA lunch where they announced BioNemo, and tremendous amount of new capabilities. I don't know, a lot of those capabilities were out there in other places, but bringing them together in a user-friendly way where you're talking, at a heart, for most of us, you're talking to scientists and maybe engineers, but not tech people. So like the usability is really important.
Yeah.
Being able to have a user interface that's intuitive, and not needing to, be using Claude code,
Right.
which, is great if you're really good at it. If
Yeah.
you're not, it's, the learning curve is steep.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been working with Claude Code. I can
Yeah.
relate. Yeah. And I think it needs to be technical enough for people who are technical, but
Right.
also general enough for someone who just needs to get a higher level picture.
Exactly. And I think, the sky's the limit. That to your question, like what's changed?
Yeah.
I don't know the answer to that. I know it will be extremely different 3 years from now than it is today. I was just thinking about this the other day. ChatGPT, I was living in Princeton when it really made headlines, and I was working at Legend still. So this was probably 2022 or 3. And I asked it to draft a patent, publicly available stuff. This is like a CAR T targeting BCMA. And I gave it one of Legend's publicly available patent numbers and just to see what it was. And it was pretty good. Like now, oh man, patent attorneys like are reviewers now instead of drafters. So that it's fundamentally changing that world.
Yeah.
And that's just a microcosm of the entire world.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Speaking of IP, I'd love to dig more into that because you have such a rich background in that. What are you seeing on the early stage aside, maybe for the portfolio companies of Persephoni? Are there main stumbling areas around, like what should founders know? Like, what do they not know that they should know?
Okay, so so intellectual property startups almost always involves a university tech transfer office.
Yeah.
Almost always, not always, but almost always. So I'm going to speak to the crowd that involves
Yes.
university tech transfer offices for a second, which is certainly all of our companies right now. Yeah, all of our companies at Persephoni and Monarch for sure. Tech transfer offices are just as cash strapped as anybody else, and maybe even more so. And so filing strategies for intellectual property filing strategies, specifically thinking about countries, which countries to file in, is a critical core decision that can't be undone for the most part. Like once you pass those deadlines, they are what they are. If you didn't file in China, you didn't file in China. Your loss. And you may be giving up hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars of value on the back end by decisions that maybe you didn't make at all. Maybe the university made without you.
Yeah.
But if you are in the room and you have the ability to help steer that, I think that is a critical thing, is to really push tech transfer offices to consider global approaches, because most, and certainly true lately, I've seen it even more lately, they're filing in U.S. only.
I see. Just to preserve cash.
Cash. And not thinking about, the sort of, and the United States is, for most diseases, is a huge, massive market, well north of 50% for most diseases. That may change in the future just because of multiple things politically, but also population dynamics.
Sure.
And political changes in other countries like China, where they're, as they continue their progress to really, really well built out economy, their ability to enter into payer relationships that look more like ours means that market's going to open for things like CAR T. That's right now, it really hasn't been much of an end user market for CAR Ts or advanced therapies generally. That's going to change. It will. So not having filed a Chinese patent is likely to be something you dramatically regret in the future.
Good
China,
advice.
you insert other countries as well. Japan, the EU5, France, Germany, Spain, Great Britain. So, thinking through and really, to the extent that you have the ability to influence the decision of your university to file in the largest economies in the world, not just the United States, I strongly suggest you do it. Doesn't mean your company's dead, but it's definitely makes it harder. You will regret it. The other thing is just the time. So we see a lot of companies that love grants, and serial grant companies are there. A lot of companies do a lot of great work, and really, really mature assets get great, even human data on grants, but they have 5 years left on their patent clock when they get out because grants are slow. compared to like, so there's a trade-off. Like it's sometimes easier to get grants. Sometimes it's not easier, but it's there. And certainly non-dilutive. But what are you giving up? And think about your IP runway as a huge part of that. Because if you get through a development cycle and you ultimately don't have much lifespan left on your patents, on your core platform IP, if you have it, think about it from a potential acquirer's perspective. What am I buying? Like, why don't I just go copy them, like knock them off, right? That's to be cynical. So like understanding that for your specific business is really important.
That's a great point. I don't think I've heard that talked about. So thank you for bringing that up. Are there any other kind of watch outs for specifically like for the tech transfer office? Like
it is, they are.
And I say that knowing that just kind of with the assumption that different tech transfer offices are different. So I don't want to paint with a wide brush.
Well, and I will say not only are different tech transfer offices different, but different tech transfer professionals within the same office are different. Okay. And I will say not all professors are treated the same. And so if you are a professor that they really don't want to lose, those folks often are treated differently in my observation. Okay. And that's true also with the sort of internal funding mechanisms that universities have. Yeah. You see it. Like when you look at enough of these deals, you'll see the difference.
Interesting.
So I would say become familiar. If you're at the point of negotiating with the TTO, like you're thinking about either spinning out or reaching out to a university to acquire some IP, become very familiar with what's called the Express License. Okay. And there's a group called AUTM or AUTM, Association of University Tech something, I don't know, AUTM. Look up their website. They have sort of some template agreements there, but I think it's the Carolina Express, the Carolina schools, North Carolina, Duke, NC State, I think, came together to create this called the Express License. Okay. And they are founder-friendly, tech-friendly terms that I think should be pushed to be industry norm. And we have had success, in saying, hey, university, this is what we want, and send them the template. It's all publicly available on the website. Just Google, Carolina Express License, and suggest that at least in terms of how the deal is structured. Of course, you're going to negotiate the actual royalty rates and the milestones, but the general idea that startups have no business paying development milestones. Deals need to be cash backloaded. Like, okay, university, you have the cash. Like the startup has none. Generally, unless that's not true, then what I'm saying isn't true. But those licensing terms, if you're paying an annual fee or milestones on sort of development milestones, like that's not good, and it shouldn't be market.
Yeah, and it's not startup, like it doesn't serve the startup well. Yeah.
And patent costs can really add up, especially when you do what I said, which is make them file in a bunch of different countries, which they should do, and you should do. Like you got to negotiate that as well. And some of the time, you're going to pay it. You're going to pay the patent fees, and it's reasonable that you do. But when you pay those patent fees, we have had some experience negotiating like long tail payment terms. So you can spread those out over time so that when you're at your baby company form and every penny matters, and you're not even getting paid as the founder, and you don't have health insurance. Not that I'm speaking from experience. Like that's the last time you want to be paying patent attorneys.
100%. Yeah. 100%. As you guys look at companies coming out of academia, like you are in that space with Persephoni, what makes you decide that, okay, these guys are ready for the next kind of to be like to use the Monarch analogy, right? To kind of come out of the university and stand on their own as a company.
So there's lots of things that we look at. So the diligence is extremely robust and, not unlike most VC firms style of diligence. But there's two key things that will kill deals, or that we look at first, or the core. And the first is science related. Yeah. Like and we are agnostic as to modality. We are agnostic as to disease space. Yeah. We have a broad thesis on what can work in drug development. We're looking for drugs. We're not doing devices. We're not doing tools and services, generally speaking, although never say never. But, we are looking for drugs that have the ability to make a large impact in a patient population that that matters. Like
Yeah.
we want to make big changes in the world. We
Yeah.
believe that if you make a big change in a patient's life, you will be financially successful. So that to that end, like we're not really looking for Me Too drugs where there's a bunch of pretty good commercially available therapies, and this is like the 10% improvement.
Sure.
Not saying those are bad companies.
Sure.
They could be great. That's just not what we want to do.
Sure.
So we're looking for disease spaces with huge unmet need. And then the second thing, and on the science still, one is that, we're blessed to have Dr. Bill Heath on our team, who was a former Eli Lilly and is, extremely, extremely accomplished drug developer, 300 drugs through the clinic himself, and his teams. And so part of it is his gut. Like, does he see it? Can he get there? And and we're developing and he's brain transferring to all of us to develop our own guts with that. But that honestly, that is a huge part of it. Is that the team knows what good looks like, and so that's a part of it. It's hard to write that down on a paper, but like, do we see it? And it is, can we get to human? Can we get to value inflection within a very reasonable period of time? Usually, at most 3 years or more, but really looking for maybe 12 to 18, 24 months. Right? That value inflection might be different per company, but usually looks like get from preclinical to first in human within that time frame. Can we make a big impact then? And the equally important non-science is the team. Like because we have a hands-on model.
Right.
We don't want to work with people who can't work in that model or don't want to. I mean, it's not that they can't, it's they don't want to. It's like the biggest competitor and I've said this a few times in public panels and things, like we've actually not really, I don't think we've ever lost a deal to a quote unquote competitor. What we have lost deals to is a founder's preconceived notion of what their company looked like, because it really wasn't some venture studio who's going to help them with a program manager and and all the things. That's not what most people's dream when they go to bed at night of what their company vision. Although it's probably the right answer.
It's probably the reality
for many,
yes.
right?
Yes.
So we have to work with people who are open to that and want the support of Bill Heath on their team, because it's not everybody. And we actually just walked away from a deal because it wasn't the case. It was clear, like, not the case. They wanted a check, which is great. Like, if that's what you need and all you need and all you think you need is a check, hope you're right. God bless you.
Yep.
Not us. Right.
Makes a lot of sense.
So that's fine. So that's the key thing.
How do you gauge founder like coachability? Is that something that you look for?
Yes. So we do that in part by coaching them.
Yeah.
Just
seeing
through the dance.
The
dance. It's a dance, right? So that initial diligence, by the time, like from first meeting to term sheet, like I said, Bill and Hillary gave me some quote unquote free advice. Like that was a test. Like, would I hear that, receive it, either do it or come back to them with questions or like alternative approaches, like, well, why not this? Like, so it's all that, right? So we give a lot of free advice and we're watching what's happening with said. And again, we're not saying you have to do what we say, but it's like, how do you think about it?
Exactly.
And Bill is an expert mentor, and he really thinks, and Hillary too. We all think about that a lot. Is like, how do they respond to the feedback?
Yeah, they could have their own opinions. They could disagree about
get defensive.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, do you exactly?
Yeah, like, do you take it and say, okay, well, I may see differently, and you have a conversation, or do you just get defensive and just like kind of like shut down?
Exactly.
Yeah. I'd love to talk more about the companies that you guys back, because maybe if you could tell for the folks listening a little bit about them at a high level, and then I have some questions because I've noticed some patterns. But
interesting. I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, but tell I don't think I'll do it justice.
Well, so Monarch mentioned CAR T cell therapy company, spin out of the University of Pittsburgh. Doctors Jason Lohmuller, Alex Dieters, brilliant scientists there, focused on how do you take known components and mix match, create a cocktail that's unique to a patient in order to solve their specific tumor burden. So the heart of that is a CAR T, but then taking and binding that CAR T to a tumor-associated antigen or to some other antigen of choice, whether it's a tumor macrophage, but creating a cocktail to create that unique targeting system. That's Monarch in vivo delivery method for CAR T. Our lead program is in ovarian cancer, so solid tumors generally, but focused on ovarian and women's health issues as our lead. The next, so we have 5 companies total. So that's one. The most recent addition is one I already mentioned, CellSim. It is a platelet mimetic or a wound healing, wound closure.
Yep.
So huge unmet need. It doesn't exist. The tourniquet is the.
And so it doesn't require cold storage, right? Or does it? Or...
So we got formulation work to be done, but the theory is no. In the way that it's an antibody-based system that brings a sort of material to the injury. So exactly solving all of
huge
that.
Applications.
Whether it's an ambulance or a battlefield or a surgery center, all of that is open and possible, and they're really at the cusp of that value inflection because they've done a tremendous amount of work on grants, including Department of Defense, but ready to go into humans. And so we're helping them, get to humans in a smart way in the coming months. So really excited about that team. And the thing that I'm most excited about that company is the team. Like I already mentioned SEMA by name, but the rest of the folks there too are really top notch and interesting tech transfer situation because there are multiple universities involved there, but really cool company. Excited about working with them. Another one is called Lamperna or Lamp RNA, which is a antisense oligonucleotide company. It's a way to increase the knockdown efficiency with a very elegant light touch solution that basically bolts onto existing ASOs. So they're not necessarily right now in the business of developing their own unique ASOs, but improving ones that are there. And that, while I said earlier we're not interested in Me Too, like that breaks the mold a little bit because most of those ASOs, because of the knockdown efficiency not being good enough, or you require high doses and they're very expensive and the market's really not materialized. So this technology can help make a market where one didn't previously exist. So very excited about that. Came out of the University of Massachusetts, a couple of scientists there, and working, again, that kind of, it was their invention, postdoc style, and they pulled it into Persephoni, and we're helping them grow that company through all preclinical. Everything is preclinical today into the clinic. The next 2 were sort of the seminal companies of Persephoni. One's called Innovira, came out of the Wistar Institute in Philadelphia, and is looking at Epstein-Barr virus related infections, IMS. And so it's a small molecule inhibitor to develop against those and really tackle a disease space that, again, very, very low standard of care. It's a tough space. It's the earliest of our companies in terms of its development timeline. It's been a really good learning experience for us though, because we're able to play out the hypervirtual model in that it actually predates our internal lab. We did not have a lab when we signed them, and we leveraged some partners globally to do some science for thousands of dollars that would have taken millions most other places by leveraging a global approach, and getting really good data to support decision making with respect to that company. So that's been a really core part of what we do is try to get to important data-driven decision milestones as fast and cheap as possible. And whatever that decision is, might be to kill the company, might be to pivot the company, might be to go raise $100 million because we're sitting on the next best thing since sliced bread, right? So that's Innovira, and then Telos is a company that actually comes to us by way of a former YC company, to get back to our conversation earlier, but is an exosome-based company that's developed a way to decorate exosomes essentially as a drug delivery, or really unique. It opens up from a platform perspective. You can do a lot of really cool things with it, but could be sort of like a protax for cells where you have different ligands on the outside of an exosome and you're bringing things together. Could be as a carrier, as a delivery mechanism. This company's lead or most developed aspect is actually in MS as well. So we have 2 in the same space. One, again, because we really believe in that disease space and that it's ripe for disruption. But also then Telos has the ability to prove out its platform itself. Its exosome manufacturing is really at the core and really been the bugaboo of most exosome companies, and I had a lot of experience with my time at Lonza, who was a major player in that space, acquired the Kodiak assets when they failed a couple of years ago, went bankrupt a couple of years ago. So I'm pretty familiar with the challenges there, and we believe Telos is on the cusp of solving a major one, and that's kind of uniformity of exosome and ability to really robustly and cheaply make the exosomes that ultimately become your therapy. So really excited about it. Again, early stage clinical, like we're doing manufacturing work now to validate the work that has been done on a small scale and prove that we can do it. Repeatedly.
I mean, these are all it sounds like very innovative companies. They're definitely not, from what I could tell, not me too. These are very novel approaches. Right. So really, really cool to see this. Would you say they're, as I was reading them, I kind of could gather that at least 3 out of 5, maybe more, have more of like a platform approach. Would that be fair
we love platforms. So this is and
so let's talk about that. Because like, how do you think about asset versus platform? Yeah. And I ask because I think this is probably the number one question that I see founders struggle with when they're fundraising, and maybe you're doing this the same with Monarch. I don't know. Do I lead with that? Like, because they go to one set of investors, they're like, no, we want to see an asset to the clinic, but then they go, maybe to tech bio investors, and they're like, no, we want to see a platform. So let's unpack that. Like
PTSD on this issue. No, you put the nail on the head in that, and this is the challenge, also the challenge of fundraising, and is that every investor you talk to, just like person generally, will have an opinion on what you should do and what they want you to do, and you will. And I have had this happen to me. I have a call at 10. Investor says, "Oh, I really like it. What you should do this, and this." And a call at 10:30, investor says,
completely
exact opposite.
Yeah.
And you'll never raise for a platform. You shouldn't even say that. Just tell me what the lead is. Like, okay. The last guy said the exact opposite. You both seem right. I don't know what to do. Yeah. So like where we are at Persephoni, and where I personally am, is that we love the idea of a platform and the flexibility, and that's obvious, as you said, you noticed this trend. We like the flexibility of platforms, but you need to get to the clinic as fast as possible into humans. And so you only can get to the clinic. Platforms can't go to the clinic. Drugs can. Drugs can. Yeah. Right. So you have to have a lead candidate that's either you're already at lead candidate, or you have the path to lead candidate clear. And understand that indication selection, you maybe don't have all the details worked out, but like a good idea about it. Because it doesn't matter how good your platform is. If you can't prove that it works in humans, you're going to run out of money, period. Sure. So what I call that, or what we call that, I don't know if, I know I call it, I don't know if Persephoni technically does, but I will say what I like to call that is platform to product. So, and that's the key is, we have a clear product. We also have, if that product works, all this other stuff is going to go right too, right? So we have this opportunity to have a huge business on the back of this hopefully huge indication that is also the first product. Yeah. And so then it starts opening up, a biotech, like thinking about your business as a biotech. Okay, what are you trying to do? You're trying to sell an asset to J&J and have them acquire an asset? Or are you trying to sell an asset to J&J and have a robust pipeline behind it? And so you're thinking, is this an IPO style company? Is this an acquisition company? All of that becomes possible when you have a clear tech roadmap. Yeah. So I would spend, I think, all companies should spend a lot of time thinking about that. Yeah. As founders, even before you launch, like, not that you have to have the final answer, but like be able to talk about the pros and cons of each, and and okay, what is this platform, or this unifying, and what even is a platform? What's the definition of a platform? Like, to me, it's a unifying technical feature. So 2 different drugs, 2 different indications, there is a unifying technical feature. Yeah. And that's like patent words, sounds like a patent lawyer said that, because, well, I am a patent lawyer, but that's what I mean. So like in Monarch's case, it's the CAR construct. The CAR T construct is same for all of our diseases. But the drugs are going to be very different. The adapters, the things that pull that drug to that CAR T to the tumor of choice, are going to be different. So the unifying technical feature, the CAR construct. Telos, the exosome, and the attaching mechanism. Lamperna, it's actually the target lysosomal targeting sequence would more or less be the same regardless of which ASO, and so on and so on. So we're talking about like you're able to clearly identify some unifying feature amongst a class of drugs, right?
And you're able to get the IP, most important,
exactly
on that unifying feature.
And it also can help solve your challenge of what I said earlier about running out of time, because ideally that platform is, that IP that discloses that platform is disclosed in a robust way that gives you true platform coverage, but not so robust that you can't have drug-specific IP in the future. When you develop 5 years from now, you develop a new target that uses that feature, you can get a new patent with new lifetime on that new drug, right? That's what we want to see.
100%.
And so looking for that specifically.
And do you look for ways that I guess by taking the asset to the clinic, it helps to de-risk not only the asset, but the platform itself?
Oh, tremendously.
Like, should there be like a flywheel that...
Yeah, and so like we're working, Monarch is we're imminently going to the clinic and developing protocol synopsis and patient, working through what the patient cohorts are right now.
Yeah.
And part of that is deciding, okay, what's the narrow, cheapest way we can get phase 1 data to prove this drug.
Yeah.
But also what could we add that, might, not break the bank, but can we add a couple more patients here or what biomarkers should we look at to show that's going to support the whole platform behind it?
Yeah.
And in addition to this specific drug, even if you're just thinking about this drug, you wouldn't necessarily need to look at that biomarker.
Yep.
But we're going to, because we want to generate data that supports the whole company.
Makes a lot of sense. And that's how you build a business model.
Exactly.
I love that. You mentioned leveraging global data, right? And doing things as cheap or as quickly as you can. Or we could get into specifics if you want, but what is the transferability of that global data? So let's say you are doing studies outside of the US, for instance, or if you're running clinical trial outside of the US. I feel like now, especially with the geopolitics or et cetera, like what guarantees can a biotech have that if it runs a study outside of the US, that when it comes back, they won't need to do it again? Or, maybe it's not a binary way of looking at it. Maybe there's a gradient there, but like for other founders navigating this, what are some of the pros and cons, or how should they think about this? Yeah.
So I think there's no guarantees, and it's part of the reality of living in a governmental political role that we all live with, and it's not unique to the U.S. Like every country is that way, right? It is what it is. Regulatory agencies ultimately are political, so there's no guarantee that something won't change tomorrow, right? So but what is a historical norm, I think, and that we see that I think still is very much true is that good science leads, and so if there is if your statistical analysis and your design of experiment is robust, that will carry. And if there is, for example, with China's, if you're thinking about a Chinese IIT, if there is a sort of genetic, ethnic reason that Han Chinese patients are different genetically than a Caucasian American person, okay, well then you're gonna have to deal with that, and you're probably gonna have to do a bridging study. But if there isn't, then you probably won't. And I think that the FDA, and we've seen some companies have success bridging directly from a IIT phase 1, first in human IIT in China directly into a phase 1/2 in the United States with advanced therapies. Those even in this administration, I think those are real examples. Even though there's a lot of sort of debate and pontification that's not true because of Biosecure Act and all that, which is very real. Certainly if you have a commercial drug and you want to manufacture in China or another insert non-American jurisdiction here, even if it's Mexico, that's a very different assessment than where you generate your data. And I think the key, at least today, from my understanding, and what I see in the news and experience, it's the robustness of the science and the data that matters, not the geographic location of it. But there could be very real, and there are very real reasons that could change. And as we have, very much is real that one FDA regulator may tell you one thing, and then when you come back 3 months later, they may change their mind. That has been publicly in the news a lot lately, and it is there's no solution to that. I don't think of it. It's just reality. You deal with it. Deal with it when it comes. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And certainly, if you think about, I think this current FDA is making press releases at sort of breakneck speed. We have our internal Slack channel, and our CMO, Mariam Mokhtarzadeh, is all over it. And so our industry news Slack channel is filled with press releases from the FDA, just making sure we're all aware of this change or whatever that change, accelerated pathway here, whatever, all the things. So it's obviously it's fast and comes at you hard. So I think this is an area where having really experienced people in your corner, don't try to white knuckle and DIY regulatory strategy. Yeah. Although there's a part of that, I also am a big believer in just do it, just write it. You don't need to go hire the $1 million CRO to write an Interact study or a proposal. Yeah. But you probably should have some gray-haired person who's helping you.
Sure. And that's who at least know what good looks like or have seen it before, with the understanding that things are super in flux right now.
Exactly. Yeah. Now, obviously when in regulatory and clinical, once you start dosing patients, then things are totally different. You have, ethical, and that's when you do want, the extremely experienced folks in your corner, and you're going to have to pay a lot of money for it. It is what it is. But at least on the strategic part of it, don't go it alone, but also
don't
get it done.
Yeah, get it done. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah. Speaking of getting it done, let's chat about fundraising. So we touched on this a little bit, but I'm curious, just from your perspective. Again, you spoke a little bit about this already, but you're fundraising, I think, as part of your role at Persephoni, but you're also fundraising as part of your role at Monarch. Yeah. So are those two things similar? And if not, just what are you seeing right now in the investment space for biotech and people writing checks, whether it's family offices, VCs? Is AI sucking all the air out of the room? Is it, is the biotech space coming back? And just kind of what you're seeing.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great time to be in the space. There is. That said, there is a lot of noise and fluff, and to the earlier conversation, you gotta be able to conserve your mental brain power and pick your audience wisely. So, but there's opportunities to be had. I think for early stage biotechs like mine, like the ones that Persephoni works with, the family office is the place that I would spend most of my time on. Okay, and do. Clear, even for Persephoni fundraising, so fund fundraising, and biotech fundraising, I think they're similar groups of people. The pitch is completely different, right? So portfolio approach, all the things how do you operate versus a specific, platform to product, a pitch. So the pitch is very different, but the people are similar, and you're kind of looking for those same things and all those questions that we talked about earlier. So, I see Monarch, for example. I'll say we just closed our pre-seed round that took a while to get momentum, but once we got momentum, it came together quick. And that's kind of, it's the pushing the rock up the hill until it rolls down the other side instead of crushing it. And on the back of that, the seed round, we had the lead investor before we even closed the pre-seed. So it's the momentum. The momentum is real and builds, and it's going. Yeah. So I think that's the key, is to tell founders to keep. Yeah. You can't lose if you don't quit. Right. That's whatever the right saying there is. Yeah. Of course you gotta pay your rent and all of that. But I think the momentum is real. Look for people who are your first followers. Doesn't have to be an investor. For Monarch's case, it was Biolabs. It was a golden ticket, not a platinum ticket. So they didn't invest in my company, but they were huge connectors for me and really, really, really helped. Yeah. And those are really important. And it gave a little bit of that credibility because people know Biolabs in our space. They're a legit outfit. And so I think looking for opportunities to have people in your corner. Yeah. If they're writing a check, it's all the best. But but even if they're not, that's the core. That's the key.
I love that. What I'm finding is that for early stage investors, the value of them is not just the check, but which other investors they can connect you to.
Yeah, exactly. When they call,
Yeah.
when if Persephoni is an investor and we call one of the family offices that is invested in Persephoni and we say, hey, this is our next company and we're going to write a check because of this, this, and this, you should too.
That carries weight. That carries weight. Yeah. Everyone talks about finding family offices in biotech. If I had a penny for every time I hear that.
Yeah.
And I feel like they're kind of like, it's like a mythical creature. We know it's out there, but where are they? Do you have any tips for other founders of where, if they're working in a rare disease, for instance? I mean, you mentioned like looking at foundations.
Rare disease. And I have a nephew with a rare disease so Charge Syndrome Foundation. My nephew has Charge Syndrome. That foundation is fantastic, and there's a ton of people impacted by that space that really want to help. And so like things like that. Michael J. Fox is an obvious example, but I think many, many, many rare diseases in particular have foundations to support. Usually to support families, but those are great points. And those people are so friendly, and they will definitely help you. Just send them an email and say, "Hey, I'm working on this. I don't know anybody. Can you help me? Who should I talk to?" And you will get 5 people.
That's great.
The second thing is KOL physicians in the space. I think often know that space as well. So you need to develop KOL networks anyways.
Sure.
While you're developing those KOL networks, ask them. Hey, do you know who should I talk to in the investment space? Have you seen anybody that I should know? Those are conversations to have. We got my professors at Pitt had a couple in that way, so super helpful that way. But honestly, there's no great answer. It's you and Claude and.
Well, I think even the habit of ending every conversation with asking who else should I speak to, I feel like that's like, these things compound. And if you ask that question a few times a day, you're going to get somewhere.
Yeah.
Before we land this, one maybe piece of advice that you may have for early stage founders. So if someone is maybe 6 to 12 months from starting their raise, and they're in the early stage biotech space, what would you want them doing right now? Or maybe put it the other way, what advice would you have to yourself when you were starting Monarch?
Yeah. Farmer's ethos, to tie it back to that.
Love that. Okay.
So, and that is to say, understand your resource constraints, which are very real, especially when you're first starting. You probably have 0. And understand there is a list as long as the day is of things to do.
Sure.
You need to be able to understand what your resources are and then prioritize, the top things that are going to drive you to the next pool of resources.
Yeah.
And that's the critical thing. So I think really at the beginning, sitting down and the fun thing is to sit down and start making the pitch deck. It's probably the last thing you should do, right? The first thing you need to do is, think about the patient. What is the actual market that I'm thinking about? Not, so working backwards, not thinking about technology looking for a home, but rather here's the homes that need solutions and build backwards from there. So thinking about that and then layering in, okay, these are the activities that will actually make it more likely for me to succeed. And it's not often it is the things that are not what everybody says, that you actually
sometimes it's not the fun things.
Right. Yeah. It might be calling 10 people that you know, or maybe you don't really know, but that you used to work with. I got several, back to that previous question of family offices, some folks at Legend that I worked with, emailed them and say, hey, here's what I'm doing. Who should I talk to?
Yeah.
And exactly what you said. And I got several. So that ultimately was just advice. Like none of those turned into checks, but I got some good advice out of that. So I think that's the key. Resource planning, farmer's ethos. No, there's only 24 hours in a day. Can't do it all. What should I do today?
I love that.
Yeah.
Great to tie it back. Where can people find you, Chris?
LinkedIn, Christopher Potts, PersephoneBio.com for Persephoni, MonarchTherapeutics.com. I have an X account, but I use it to watch other people, not post, and then on LinkedIn. Yeah.
Amazing. Chris, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah,
this
thank
is
you.
a blast.
Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely. Thank you.